Okay, did you know that since yesterday around this time, 166,000 people have died? And that nearly 70,000 of those people are now in an eternity separated from God. And most of those people didn't even have access to the gospel. We must end this tragedy. So as faithful Christians, it is our job to reach the unreached and give access to the gospel to where it is now. This speech will show you why we should be involved and how to get involved. So all Christians should have a meaningful role in reaching the unreached with the gospel. I've done many hours of research and I'm fully involved in this topic. So here are 3 reasons why all Christians should have a meaningful role in reaching the unreached. So first, there's a strong biblical precedent. Second, there's a desperate need. And finally, the glory of God is at stake. So why should all Christians care about the unreached? Well, first, there's a biblical precedent. The Bible reveals that God desires to reach every people with his salvation. Habakkuk 2:14, "For the earth will be filled with the knowledge of the Lord's glory as the water covers the sea." And then again in Isaiah 49:6, it says, "I'll also make you a light to the Gentiles, for my salvation to the ends of the earth." But how will this happen? According to the Bible, how will God bring his salvation of the good news and bring that to the entire world? Well, the Bible reveals in Acts 13:47, Paul and Barnabas say, "For this is what the Lord has commanded us. I made you a light for the Gentiles to bring salvation to the ends of the earth." That was Paul quoting back from the Isaiah verse. Then in Matthew 28:19, Jesus reveals the Father's plan. Jesus commands us as Christians to go to all the nations and make disciples. As we can see, God's glory reach all people through his people. Therefore, the command is clear that we as Christians, it is our job to reach all people. So, we know that's our job, but is there really that much of a need? Yes. As you can see in the visual aid, nearly 42% of the world is classified as unreached, according to the Joshua Project, which means a whopping 42% of the world living right now have very little to no access of a true gospel witness. Thankfully, about 48% of the world does have a decent gospel witness, leaving about 10% with just some. Sadly, every minute, 44 people die with little or no access to the gospel, meaning they have never had a Christian friend, never saw a Bible in a bookstore, never saw a gospel billboard, nothing. In fact, last week, over 1 million people died, unless God did something miraculous, which he can and he does, without ever hearing that Jesus died for them and was willing to take away their sins. So although there is a great need that ought to compel us to reach everyone, there's actually even a greater reason for us to go. And that is the glory of God. God deserves to be worshipped by every person in every place. Yahweh is the one and only true God, therefore he should be worshipped. In fact, the greatest injustice of all is not abortion, it's not sex trafficking, it's not death, it's not war. The greatest injustice is that God is not worshipped by every person. He created the world, he sustains the world, and he even died for us. Romans 11:36 says, "For from him and through him and to him are all things. To him be the glory forever. Amen." And Isaiah 6:3, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of armies. His glory fills the whole earth." And there are many other passages like this in the Bible, showing that God deserves all the glory. So, I have a review of the main points. First, we saw that there's a biblical precedent. Second, there is a desperate need. And finally, the glory of God is at stake. So therefore, in light of all of this, all Christians should have a meaningful role in reaching the unreached with the gospel. Now, how can you actually meaningfully do this? We're not just all going to move to Afghanistan tomorrow or something. But first, we can pray. Prayer is the most important tool for this. God always sets aside his prayer warriors before he does an amazing work. Ask your church if they, unless they already are, ask them to pray for the unreached and just like the global church as a whole every week. You can also get involved like volunteering and giving. These are just different options you can do. And also pray and ask God to see if he would have you go to the unreached or just to your backyard, to your neighbor, whoever it is. So finally, I want to end with a story. And this is a dream that Greg Livingston had which drove him to start one of the world's largest missions organizations. So this was his dream. I'm telling you his dream. 2 Muslim men died. They had been decent men, good family men. They didn't beat their wives. They worked hard to get their kids through school. They sought to be faithful in their prayers, although they didn't always manage to do all their prayers because they had to work long hours. But then suddenly, so they died, suddenly they were in darkness. They weren't screaming, but they were in shock. It was a moment of truth. They realized Muhammad was not the way, not the truth, and not the door to paradise. They had been deceived. They were stunned, speechless. Eventually, one of them found his voice, whispered to the other, Did you ever have a Christian friend? The other man was deeply thoughtful. Then he replied, sadly, No, I never did. Did you? The first man, looking down in darkness, in absolute agony, gnashing his teeth, paused for what seemed to be a full minute, and said, No, I didn't either.